Wow, absolutely incredible what we just witnessed between Manchester City and RB Leipzig. Manchester City winning 7-0 with Holland scoring 5 goals. There's only one place to begin with this match, and it's with Erling Haaland. What a performance. Utterly unbelievable. Scoring 5 goals, no matter how you score the goals, is always going to be unbelievable. And I'll say this. People are already giving Haaland some slack, saying there's 5 tap-ins, 5 goals that weren't, that impressive, this and that. Anytime you score 5 goals, it's impressive. It doesn't matter if you score 5 tap-ins, 5 penalties. 5 goals is always going to be impressive. And that's what he did tonight. It's very impressive. And to do it in the Champions League round of 16, it's always going to be impressive. And Manchester City signed Erling Haaland so that they could win the Champions League. You sign a player like Haaland to your football club to win the Champions League. Man City have dominated the Premier League for, 5 seasons pretty much, ever since Pep Guardiola took over. They signed Haaland so that they could finally win the Champions League. This is their goal. This is what the club wants to accomplish. And this is exactly why you sign Erling Haaland, to score goals in the Champions League. And that's what he did tonight. It's exactly what he did tonight, scoring 5 goals. So this signing is proving to be the right decision for Manchester City, because people have given them slack saying, oh, Man City is not as good of a team since they've signed Haaland. They might not win the Premier League this year. Look, I hope that conversation is over. I do not want to have the conversation that Haaland is making Manchester City worse, that they're not as good of a team with Haaland. It's bull. It's just it's literally it's a figment of our imagination that we're even having this conversation. It shouldn't exist, because the fact that we're saying Manchester City are worse without Haaland, or with Haaland, I mean, it's baloney. It's bull, because Haaland, it brings something to this team that they didn't have before: pure goal scoring ability, positioning. Gabriel Jesus was not bringing what Haaland brings to this Manchester City team. It's just not. Jesus did bring a different element. He could drop deep. He could link up to play better than Haaland. I'll give him that. But Haaland is what they needed. They needed a pure goal scorer. And it seems like finally they might have turned the corner, and they're finally playing to suit Haaland's strengths, and they're actually playing well around Haaland. And I'll give Haaland credit today. It seemed as if he was able to actually improve his link-up play. He's getting a little bit better at it, and he was actually getting more touches on the ball today. He looked more involved in the play outside of his 5 goals. So overall, his whole performance, even outside of the goals, was magnificent. A great overall performance. So I give Holland a lot of credit. So it's one of those things. It's an utterly impressive performance, what we just witnessed. Because at 1-1, we were sitting here and we were saying, look, Leipzig are a very good team. And I don't want this to fall underneath the wayside, that we're just going to sit here and act like Leipzig are not a good team because of this result. Leipzig are a very good football club, a very good team with world-class players. Obviously, it's unfortunate that they don't have Nkunku at the moment. And it's unfortunate that, that's probably their best player that they don't have, and that you'd love to have him in this type of game. But the fact of the matter is, they still have class players. They still have Reimer. They still have Forsberg. They still have, Timo Werner, who, he is what he is, but he's still a good player, maybe not world class by any stretch. You have Gvardiol, who obviously didn't have his best night, of course, tonight, but he is still a player that's going to go for 100 million. He's a world class player, world class center back. And Manchester City absolutely dominated them, put them to sleep. Pretty much by halftime, you knew that this was over, maybe even before halftime. So it's a utterly impressive performance by Manchester City that they were able to get the result that they just did, winning 7-0. And I think this might be the result that the football world didn't want to see. Manchester City may have just announced themselves as the second favorite to win the Champions League at the moment. Because you look at the remaining teams in the Champions League: AC Milan, Bayern Munich, Benfica, Chelsea, Inter Milan, Manchester City. It's expected to be Napoli and Real Madrid who go through tomorrow. I would say, after this result, I would put Manchester City right up there with Bayern Munich and Napoli as my favorites at the moment, based on what I just saw. Because we know that they have the quality, the players to do it. They have one of, if not the best manager in the world in Pep Guardiola. It just comes down to, can they put it all together? And 7-0, clinical. It's scary because it only takes one chance now. With Erling Haaland, it takes Manchester City creating one chance, and they can put it away. That's what they were lacking before. They had to create so many chances. They weren't that clinical. Haaland, we just saw him today, utterly clinical. What a performance. So it's going to come down to the draw. I mean, ultimately, the Premier League title race is going to be heating up. I know that they're still going to be trying to win that. So I don't know exactly how it's all going to play out. But I'll have to retract my previous statement for now that I said after the first leg, Pep Guardiola, it needs to be talked about his underperforming in the Champions League since he's left Barcelona. He failed at Bayern to win the Champions League, and so far at City, he has failed. This might be the season that he finally gets over that hump. But not gonna have that conversation for now because they're in the quarterfinals, dominant performance, and this might be the year that they do it. This genuinely might be the year that they're able to, finally win the Champions League, finally get over the hump and do it. And ultimately, that's what you sign Erling Haaland for. They brought him in to win the Champions League, and it looks like that they finally might be doing that. So it's one of those things. This was a dominant performance, utterly, utterly dominant. It's one of those things. Very, very convincing win, and it's going to come down to the draw. But I do think that right now, this team is one of, if not the favorite, to win this competition because up and down their lineup. I mean, we've known that they have the quality of players to do it. I mean, you look at their lineup today. There was, for me, when I first started to see this match develop, a few question marks. I saw John Stones going into midfield. I was scratching my head a little bit, like, what am I watching? John Stones moving into midfield. I don't know what I'm seeing here, but ultimately it worked. I mean, they were able to keep a clean sheet. Didn't really. I mean, I can't remember a chance for Leipzig where it was like, they probably should have scored that. They didn't really create much, and Man City's press seemed to be working very, very well today. And whether that comes down to Leipzig just weren't really able to, flow properly, or is that Man City have finally turned a corner and they've kind of got their press back to what it used to be. It remains to be seen. We'll have to see if they can become a little bit more consistent with it. But I'll say this. My only criticism of Manchester City today would be Ederson. Ederson, he's one of those goalkeepers. He just tends to have a couple bozo moments every now and then. And even today in a 7-0 win, we saw what I can't really even describe it, where he ran out of the box, took out, I think it was Timo Werner, and that should have been a foul. Which definitely should have been a foul. And it's mistakes like that when you look back on previous Manchester City Champions League runs. Ederson mistakes have tended to cost them time and time again. And obviously, the mistake didn't really do much today. Obviously, it had no impact on the game at all. But it's one of those things. Ederson could end up costing this team later on when it gets to the even the quarterfinals next round or the semifinals if they make it that far, because he just makes little mistakes, and realistically, when it comes to knockout football, you cannot make those mistakes. Knockout football, you have to be almost perfect. You can't gift the team a goal. You can't gift the team getting a red card, which was something that can happen. As soon as you rush out of that box and you're going for the ball, you miss. It could be a red card. It's something that could happen. And obviously, this conversation is going to fall by the wayside because of the result. I mean, it was 7-0. But the penalty for Holland, I'll go ahead and give my opinion on it. This was not a penalty. In my opinion, look, I don't want this to seem like I'm saying that Man City only won because of the penalty, because of course not. But obviously, Man City would have won this game regardless. But that does not change the fact that I don't think that this was a penalty. I watch the replay. I go frame by frame, and I sit there and I say, I can't see the ball definitively hitting his hand. If this is a penalty, I don't know anymore. I don't know. I really don't know anymore. How can you go to VAR, look at it for a couple seconds, and say, yep, that's a clear penalty? I understand the arm was out, so maybe it looks like it could have been a penalty, but you go frame by frame, I don't really see it definitively hit the arm. Obviously, no impact on the result. Man City would have utterly smashed Leipzig anyway. But I'm like, if this is what we're giving penalties for these days, I mean, I don't really know anymore. I really don't know. And obviously, in a game that could be coming up in potentially the quarterfinals or the semifinals, I would not want it to be decided on a penalty like that, because that was real. If it was a penalty, it was really close. I don't think it was a penalty because I can't really see it definitively hit the arm. But I don't know. I don't know. Obviously, that was just the start of what was to come, of the rampage of Erling Haaland. And, people are still going to be riding this Haaland tap-in merchant train. And obviously, I don't see Sure, does he score tap ins? Yes, but ultimately that's what they signed him for. They signed Holland to score those tap ins, to score those chances, to be in the right position. That's what I give Holland a lot of credit for. He is always in the right position. That's what a great striker does. He finds the right positions to score the goals, to get the tap ins. His positioning is utterly unbelievable. He's always in the right position to score those goals. And that's what you saw today. It was like every time the ball bounced inside the box, Holland was there. He's a robot. It's not even human the way that he's able to position himself to get the goals. So that's where I give him a lot of credit. Is he scoring a lot of tap ins? Sure. But you have to put yourself in the position to get those tap ins. And any team would love to have a player that can score 5 tap ins because you're scoring 5 goals. They all count the same. Whether or not you're scoring 30-yard free kicks or you're scoring a tap in from inside the 6-yard box, they all count the same. Obviously, one is more fun to watch and more beautiful to watch, but they all count the same at the end of the day. If I can win the Champions League scoring 5 tap ins, I would love that. I would love to see my club Chelsea win the Champions League by scoring tap ins. You know what I mean? It's one of those things. Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't want to see their club win the Champions League or win the Premier League or win anything by scoring tap ins? So obviously, when it's a rival club and when it's a player you might not like, you're just going to say the tap in merchant, but I don't want to hear that. So look, overall, what I'll say about this match, utterly unbelievable. Haaland, what a performance, what a match, what a game. He's over here tying Messi records. You know, the only players to score 5 goals in a Champions League knockout stage. Him and Lionel Messi against Bayer Leverkusen back in the day. That's great company to be in. It'll be very interesting to see who Man City get drawn against. But my closing point, Man City is not a team that anyone wants to get drawn against in the next round because in a two-legged affair, they would be very difficult to knock out, especially with the robot Erling Haaland at striker, who's just bagging goals for fun. But I'll go ahead and close off this video. I want to know, what did you think about this match? Let me know in the comments down below. What do you think of Haaland? What do you think about his 5 goals? Did you think that Man City should have had a penalty? Because obviously it had no impact on the game result. But I don't think that was a penalty, and I want to know what you thought about it. So let me know in the comments down below what you thought of the penalty. But without further ado, subscribe to the channel, drop a like on the video, comment down below, and I will see you next time for another video. Peace.